There are a ton of FPS games out there, but not all of them have campaigns worth a damn. Some of them you blast through once and forget about by the next morning. But then there are those ones, you know, the ones where you finish the last mission and just kind of sit there for a second. Those are the games we're talking about today. Campaigns that are just flat out worth your time, whether you played them back in the day or completely slept on them. Let's get into it. Wolfenstein: The New Order is a game that I think really surprised a lot of people when it came out in 2014, and I'm including myself in that because, like Wolfenstein, right? It's this old franchise. It's one of the granddaddies of first-person shooters, and there had been attempts to bring it back before, like the 2009 Wolfenstein, which was fine, but not like amazing or anything. And then Machine Games comes along, and they're like, we're going to make a Wolfenstein game, but we're going to actually care about the story and the characters. And I think a lot of people were like, yeah, okay, sure, it's a game about killing Nazis. How much story do you really need? And then you play it, and it's like, oh, holy shit, they actually did it. They made a game about killing Nazis that has genuine emotional weight, that has characters you care about, that has moments that are legitimately affecting. And it's not at the expense of the gameplay either. Like, the shooting is still fantastic. It's still brutal and visceral and satisfying, but on top of that, you have this like surprisingly well-told alternate history story about what if the Nazis won World War II and now it's the 1960s and they control the world, and you're BJ Blazkowicz and you're basically the last hope for the resistance. The war is over, the Nazis won, and you've just been gone.
Berlin. Come in, Berlin. What's your status?
We're in bad shape, Captain.
Now let's talk about the combat. It's old school in all the right ways. You can carry every weapon at once. None of this 2-weapon limit nonsense. You've got your pistols, your assault rifles, your shotguns, your sniper rifles, and you can dual wield almost all of them. Dual wielding shotguns, dude. Dual wielding assault rifles. It's ridiculous and it's so much fun. And the game gives you options for how you want to play. You can go in loud, just blasting your way through everything, or you can try to be stealthy. You've got a silenced pistol, you can do stealth takedowns, you can throw knives, and the levels are designed to accommodate both playstyles. Like, there are usually multiple paths through areas, multiple ways to approach encounters, and I found myself mixing it up a lot. Sometimes I'd try to stealth through a section, take out the commanders quietly so they can't call for reinforcements, and then when I inevitably got caught because I'm not perfect at stealth, I'd just switch to loud mode and fight my way out. And the game handles that transition really well. It never feels like you failed if you get detected. It's just a different kind of fun. The level design is really strong too. You've got a lot of variety in the environments. You're going to a Nazi compound in Croatia, you're infiltrating a prison, you're going to a concentration camp, which is heavy as hell, you're going to London, which is under Nazi occupation, you're going to the moon. Yes, they just casually put in a frickin' moon mission. The Nazis have like advanced technology in this universe because they found some ancient advanced civilization's tech and they've been reverse engineering it. So they've got like laser weapons and robots and powered armor and all this sci-fi stuff mixed with the World War II aesthetic. And it creates this really unique visual identity where you've got like 1960s technology and design mixed with advanced sci-fi Nazi superweapons mixed with this brutalist concrete architecture. It's very distinct looking. The game also has this perks system where you unlock abilities by doing certain things. Like if you get a bunch of stealth kills, you unlock stealth-related perks. If you dual wield a lot, you unlock dual wielding perks. If you use certain weapon types, you get perks for those weapons. It's a simple system, but it works because it's rewarding you for playing the way you want to play. And the health system is old school too. You don't have regenerating health. You have a health bar and you pick up health packs and armor to stay alive. And it makes combat more tense because you can't just hide behind cover and wait for your screen to stop being red. You have to manage your resources, you have to decide when to push forward and when to fall back. And the game is generous with health and armor pickups, so it never feels unfair, but you still have to pay attention. The difficulty options are interesting too. I played through it like on the normal difficulty first, and it was pretty challenging but fair. But the game has these higher difficulties that really test your skills. And there's even this like permadeath mode where if you die, you have to start the whole game over, which is insane, dude. I haven't tried that. I don't have the patience for that. But it's there if you want it. The game is also surprisingly long for a single-player FPS campaign. It took me like 10 or 11 hours on my first playthrough, and I wasn't even trying to find everything. If you're going for all the collectibles and secrets, you could easily spend 15 hours or more with this game, and it's paced well enough that it doesn't feel like it's overstaying its welcome. There's enough variety in the missions and the locations that it keeps things fresh throughout. And for the boss fights, so there aren't a ton of them, just maybe 1 or 2, I think. Okay, so Metro Exodus. This came out in 2019 and it's like the third game in the Metro series. And if you played Metro 2033 or Metro Last Light, you know those games are very linear, very claustrophobic. You're in the Moscow metro tunnels for most of it. Metro Exodus takes that formula and opens it up, and it works way better than I expected, dude. So you're still playing as Artyom, and the setup is that you and a group of survivors steal this train called the Aurora, and you're leaving Moscow to try and find a better life somewhere else in post-apocalyptic Russia. And the game is structured around these big open areas that you explore. Like, you'll arrive at a location, you get off the train, and you have this semi-open world to explore for a few hours before you move on to the next area. It's not a full open world, it's more like these large sandbox levels, and I think that structure works really well, because each area has its own vibe, its own story, its own challenges. The first big area is the Volga, which is this frozen river region in early spring. You're exploring this muddy, partially frozen landscape, there's this crazy religious cult, there are mutants everywhere, and you're just scavenging for supplies and trying to help your crew. Then you go to the Caspian Desert, which is completely different. It's hot, it's sandy, you're driving around in a van, and it feels like a different game. Then there's the Taiga, which is this dense forest, and that one's more linear and focused on stealth. Each area has a different season, different enemies, different atmosphere, and it keeps the game feeling fresh. The survival mechanics are still there from the previous games, but refined. You're managing your gas mask filters when you're in irradiated areas, you're managing ammo, which is scarce, you're cleaning your weapons because they get dirty and jam if you don't maintain them, and you can customize your guns on the fly. Like, you find a workbench or you're back on the train and you can add scopes, change barrels, add stocks, modify your weapons however you want. It's really satisfying because you're constantly tweaking your loadout based on what you're about to do. The gunplay feels good, it's got weight to it, and you can approach situations with stealth or go loud, and the game accommodates both. I found myself using stealth a lot because ammo is precious and you don't want to waste it if you don't have to. But when fights break out, they're tense and desperate because you're always low on resources. You're not some overpowered super soldier. You're just a guy trying to survive with whatever gear you can scavenge. The story is pretty straightforward, but it's got heart. Artyom doesn't talk, which is a weird choice for a game that's trying to be more personal and character-driven, but whatever. The people on the train with you, they're your crew, and you get to know them over the course of the game. Yeah, so the moral system is back from the previous games, but it's more subtle here. You're not getting obvious good choice, bad choice prompts. You just play how you want to play, and the game is tracking stuff like whether you're killing people or knocking them out, whether you're listening to conversations, whether you're helping people you encounter. The atmosphere in this game is incredible, man. Like, 4A games just nail the post-apocalyptic vibe. The way light filters through your gas mask, the sound design with the wind and the creaking of the train and the mutant noises, the little details like wiping dirt off your mask or checking your watch for radiation levels. It's so immersive. And the graphics are gorgeous, especially with ray tracing if you have the hardware for it. The lighting in particular is just stunning. The way sunlight breaks through clouds or the way your flashlight illuminates dark tunnels, it all looks amazing.
So you got me, you damn heretics.
This is one of those campaigns that I think about all the time, and it genuinely makes me a little sad that more people didn't experience this when it came out. Like, this game got absolutely murdered by its release date. It came out like right between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare in 2016, and EA just like threw it to the wolves. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me actually talk about why this campaign is so damn good, because it really is. So first off, I gotta say, if you're coming into Titanfall 2 expecting like this massive 15-20 hour campaign, that's not what this is. This is like a tight focused. I think it took me about 5.5, maybe 6 hours on my first playthrough, and some people might look at that and be like, oh, that's too short, but I cannot stress this enough. There is not a single ounce of fat on this thing. Like, every single mission in this campaign has its own identity, unique mechanic or gimmick, and it never overstays its welcome. It's one of those games where you finish it and you're like, man, I wish there was more. But also, you're satisfied because what you got was just so good, you know? The setup is pretty straightforward. You play as Jack Cooper, who's like this rifleman, this grunt who wants to be a pilot. And in the Titanfall universe, pilots are like the elite soldiers, right? So they're the ones who get to pilot the Titans, these massive mechs. And through some circumstances early in the game, your mentor dies, and you end up getting linked to his Titan, BT-7274. And that's really where the heart of this game is. It's the relationship between you and BT. And I know that sounds cheesy, like, oh, a relationship with a robot. robot, but Respawn absolutely nails it. BT is like this very logical, very protocol-driven AI, but over the course of the campaign, you see this bond develop, and it's not like overly sentimental or anything, it's actually pretty subtle and really well done.
Objection. Cooper is my pilot. Our combat effectiveness rating now exceeds 90%.
Now, let me talk about the actual gameplay, because this is where Titanfall 2 just absolutely shines. The movement in this game, it is butter. Silky smooth, 60 frames per second on console, even better on PC obviously, but like the way you move as a pilot is just phenomenal. You've got wall running, you've got double jumps, you've got slide hopping if you really want to get into it, and the game teaches you all of this stuff through its level design in like the smartest ways. And then you've got the Titan combat, which is completely different but equally satisfying. When you're in BT, you feel like this walking tank, but you're not slow and sluggish. You can still dash, you can still move with purpose, and throughout the campaign you get to swap out BT's loadout. You get different Titan weapons, different abilities. Sometimes you're using like the Scorch loadout with the thermite launcher, sometimes you're using the Ronin loadout with the sword, which by the way, having a giant sword on your Titan is just cool as hell. And the game mixes up when you're on foot as a pilot doing the fast agile movement combat, and when you're in BT doing the more heavy methodical Titan combat. And it never feels repetitive because again, every mission has its own thing going on. Okay, so I gotta talk about some specific missions because this is where Titanfall 2 really sets itself apart from like every other FPS campaign. There's this mission, I think it's like the second or third one, where you assault this like enemy base and you're wall running through this facility and you're calling in BT at certain moments and he like crashes through walls and you're jumping on his back, and it's just this perfectly choreographed action sequence that makes you feel like the most badass action hero ever. But the crown jewel, the mission that everybody talks about, is Effect and Cause. This is the time travel mission, and I'm not going to spoil too much of the story context, but basically you get this device that lets you jump between present day and the past, and you can switch at will with like the press of a button. So you'll be in a ruined facility in the present, and then you switch to the past, and it's this pristine IMC research facility with guards everywhere. And you're using this to solve environmental puzzles, but also in combat. Like you're fighting enemies in the present, you switch to the past to flank them, you switch back and they're all confused about where you went. It's genius. It's one of the best executed level gimmicks I've ever played. And again, it's just one mission. They do it for one mission, they do it perfectly, and then they move on to something else. That's the beauty of this campaign. The gunplay, I should mention, is fantastic. Like Respawn, these are the guys who made Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2 back in the day, so they know how to make guns feel good. Every weapon in this game has weight, has impact. Now, I will say, and this is me being honest here, the story itself is pretty straightforward. Like, it's a solid story, don't get me wrong. There's stuff about, like the IMC, the bad corporation, has this super weapon, and you and BT have to stop it. It's pretty standard sci-fi action stuff, but the execution is so good, and the relationship between Jack and BT carries so much of the emotional weight that it doesn't matter that the overall plot is kind of simple. And you know, one thing I really appreciate about Titanfall 2 is that it came out in an era where a lot of games, especially multiplayer-focused games, were kind of skimping on single player. Like the first Titanfall didn't even have a campaign, it was multiplayer only. And I think Respawn heard that feedback and they were like, okay, we're gonna make a campaign and we're gonna make it really good. And they absolutely delivered. This campaign is better than most games campaigns that are like twice as long, you know? And I think that's what I'm really trying to get across here. Like, this isn't just a good campaign, this is like a masterclass in how to do a single-player FPS campaign right. It's a game that understands that quality is better than quantity, that variety is key, that player agency and feeling powerful is important, and that if you're going to have an emotional core to your story, you have to earn it through gameplay and writing, not just through cutscenes. So yeah, if you haven't played Titanfall 2's campaign, you absolutely need to. It's essential FPS gaming. It's up there with like Half-Life 2 and Modern Warfare and Halo and all those classics. It deserves to be in that conversation. Okay, so BioShock, man, this is one of those games that, like, it came out in 2007 and it just completely blew people's minds. And I think it still holds up as one of the best FPS campaigns ever made. Not just because of the shooting, but because of everything around it. The world, the story, the atmosphere, all of it. Like, this game does so many things right that it's kind of hard to know where to start. So you play as Jack, and the game opens with you on a plane that crashes in the Atlantic Ocean in 1960. You're the only survivor, you swim to this lighthouse in the middle of nowhere, and you find this bathysphere that takes you down to Rapture. And Rapture is like this underwater city that was built by this Ayn Rand objectivist billionaire named Andrew Ryan, who wanted to create this utopia free from government and religion and all that. But obviously things went horribly wrong, and by the time you get there, the place is just completely fallen apart. Everyone's addicted to these genetic modifications called plasmids. They've all turned into these crazy mutated people called splicers, and you're just trying to survive and figure out what the hell happened. The atmosphere in this game is incredible. Like, Rapture is one of the best video game settings ever. It's this Art Deco 1950s aesthetic, but everything's flooded and falling apart and covered in blood. You're walking through what used to be like fancy hotels and shopping districts and theaters, but now they're just these decaying, flooded nightmares full of insane people. And the game does such a good job of environmental storytelling. You find audio diaries scattered everywhere, these little recordings from people who lived in Rapture, and they fill in what happened, how this utopia fell apart. Some of them are just like mundane stuff about people's daily lives, some of them are horrifying, and together they paint this really complete picture of this world.
And don't cost half a damn. Who cares if the things are made out of seashells and fish eggs?
The combat is really unique because you've got your standard guns, pistol, machine gun, shotgun, grenade launcher, but you also have plasmids, which are like magical powers basically. You can shoot lightning from your hands, you can throw fire, you can freeze enemies, you can telekinesis objects and throw them at people. And the game encourages you to combine these things, like you can set an oil slick on fire, or you can electrify water to shock everyone standing in it, or you can freeze a splicer and then shatter them with your wrench. It's really satisfying when you start experimenting and finding these combinations that work. The Big Daddies are like the iconic enemy from this game, right? They're these huge guys in diving suits who protect the little sisters, who are these creepy little girls who harvest a substance called Atom from corpses. And Atom is what you use to upgrade your plasmids and get new abilities. So you have to fight these Big Daddies to get to the little sisters. And these fights are tough, dude. Big Daddies hit hard, they're tanky, and you have to use everything at your disposal to take them down. But when you do, you get this moral choice. Do you harvest the little sister for more Atom, which kills her, or do you save her and get less Atom, but it's like the right thing to do? And this choice affects the ending you get. Also, the level design is really strong. Each area of Rapture has its own identity. You go to the medical pavilion, where a crazy plastic surgeon has been experimenting on people. You go to Arcadia, which is this flooded garden area. Fort Frolic, which is this theater district run by this insane artist named Sander Cohen. And that whole section is just wonderfully creepy and unsettling. You go to Hephaestus, which is like the industrial area powering the city. And each area tells its own little story while contributing to the larger narrative about Rapture's fall. Graphically, the game has aged a bit, but the art direction is so strong that it doesn't really matter. Like, the atmosphere of Rapture is timeless. The character designs, the environments, the lighting, it all creates this really cohesive and memorable look. BioShock is just such a complete experience. It's a game that respects your intelligence, that uses the medium of video games to tell a story that couldn't be told any other way, that creates this world that you want to explore and learn about, even though it's horrifying. The gameplay is fun and unique with the plasmid system, the story is thought-provoking, the atmosphere is unmatched. Like, when people talk about games as art, BioShock is one of the first examples that comes to mind. And it spawned this whole franchise too. BioShock 2 is pretty good, it's more of the same but with some refinements. BioShock Infinite is super divisive, but I think it's worth playing. But the original, man, that's the one that really left a mark on the industry. It showed you could make a shooter that was also a deep, meaningful story, that you could have something to say beyond just shoot the bad guys. Okay, so F.E.A.R. Like, this is one of those games where I feel like not enough people my age or younger have actually sat down and played it, and that genuinely kind of kills me because, like, this game came out in 2005 and it is still doing things that modern shooters just don't. Like, they don't even try, and that's the thing that gets me every time I think about F.E.A.R. It's a good-ass game. So, for anybody who doesn't know, F.E.A.R. stands for First Encounter Assault Recon, which is already the most badass acronym in gaming history, and you play as this guy who's literally just called the Point Man, which tells you everything you need to know about the vibe here. You are a soldier. You are part of the secret special forces unit. You don't have a name, a face, or any personality. You are just a weapon, and the game deploys you to go deal with this rogue military commander named Paxton Fettel, who has somehow psychically taken control of an entire clone army and is just like going around massacring people. And that's already a crazy premise, but then layered on top of all of that is this whole horror element involving this little girl named Alma. And man, Alma is the reason this game is what it is. Because here's the thing, F.E.A.R. is doing two things at once, and it does both of them really, really well, which is kind of insane when you think about it. On one hand, you have this incredibly tight, mechanically satisfying first-person shooter, and on the other hand, you have this genuinely unsettling, creepy, atmospheric horror game. And most games that try to do that kind of split thing end up being mediocre at both. F.E.A.R. somehow nails both sides completely. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say the gunplay in this game is some of the best feeling gunplay of that entire era, maybe even beyond that era. And a huge part of that comes down to the slow motion mechanic, the reflex boost, which is basically bullet time. And look, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, cool, Max Payne did bullet time, we've seen bullet time, whatever. But F.E.A.R. does something with it that feels completely different because of the enemy AI. The enemies in this game, and I cannot stress this enough, the enemies in this game are smart. Like, genuinely, embarrassingly smart compared to most shooters even today. These guys will flank you, they will call out your position to their squad mates, they'll kick over furniture to make cover, they'll get low, they'll throw a grenade to flush you out and then rush your position while you're scrambling. They work as an actual unit. And so when you flip on that slow motion and you're watching one guy dive behind a desk while another one is circling around your left side and a third one is blind firing over a countertop, and you have to process all of that and react, it feels incredible. It feels like you are actually this superhuman soldier, like you are the Point Man. Every single firefight becomes this incredible ballet of destruction where bullets are tearing through drywall and particle effects are flying everywhere, and bodies are ragdolling off of scaffolding, and it feels so good, dude. And the level design kind of feeds into that too, because Monolith, the studio that made this, they were really smart about how they built these spaces. A lot of the game takes place in these kind of mundane corporate industrial environments, office buildings, warehouses, research facilities, and at first that sounds kind of boring, right? Like, oh great, another beige corridor shooter. But they use those spaces really intentionally, because everything in those environments is destructible or interactive in some way. The bullet holes in the walls accumulate, ceiling tiles get blown apart, fluorescent lights flicker and shatter, papers go flying, and it makes every fight feel like it has weight and consequence, like the space is actually being used as a battlefield. But then, and this is where F.E.A.R. really separates itself, then you're walking down one of those beige office corridors, totally calm, totally quiet after just annihilating an entire squad of dudes, and you turn a corner and there is Alma, just standing there at the end of a hallway, in that red dress, staring at you. And then the hallway kind of just fills with blood, or she's gone and there's a handprint on the glass, or the lights go out and something happens, and when they come back on, everything is different. And man, these sequences, these horror sequences, they are legitimately frightening. Like, I don't throw that word around. I'm not a huge horror guy, but this game got me. Also, the friggin' story of this game is so much more interesting than people give it credit for. Like, on the surface, it sounds like a bog standard military shooter with some ghost stuff thrown in, but when you actually dig into it, the story of Alma Wade is genuinely dark and genuinely tragic and genuinely disturbing in ways that feel real and grounded. This isn't a monster for the sake of a monster. There's a reason she is the way she is. And the game parcels that information out really well through these environmental details and these intercepted phone calls and these moments of vision that your character experiences. And by the end of it, like, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played, but the ending of F.E.A.R. hits differently when you understand everything that's happened. This one's special. When people talk about great FPS campaigns, especially in the Western space, they usually jump straight to the obvious stuff. Big open worlds, cinematic realism, gritty authenticity, and then there's Gunslinger, just sitting there, kind of smirking to itself, doing something way more clever than it gets credit for. So the whole setup is already strong. You're playing as Silas Greaves, this aging bounty hunter telling stories about his life in a saloon, and the entire campaign is basically you reliving those stories as he tells them. That framing device could have just been a gimmick. Instead, it becomes the backbone of the entire experience. Because here's the genius part, the game changes while he's narrating. You'll be mid-firefight and someone in the bar calls him out, like, that's not how it happened, and suddenly the level rewinds itself. Enemies reposition, the environment shifts, entire sequences get recontextualized. It's one of those mechanics that feels playful at first, but then you realize how much it adds to pacing and tone. You're not just running through static levels, you're inside a legend being actively rewritten. Mechanically, this is pure arcade FPS energy. Tight, responsive gunplay. Revolvers feel punchy and precise. The rifles crack in a way that just feels right. Shotguns have that heavy, satisfying boom that clears space instantly. It's not trying to simulate realism, it's trying to simulate the idea of a gunslinger duel, and it nails that feeling. Also, then what the duels. The one-on-one showdowns are some of the best parts of the campaign. You circle your opponent, time slows. You have to balance hand positioning and reaction timing. Your heartbeat starts to rise. It's simple, but it creates tension in a way that feels theatrical, like you're in a Sergio Leone film. Progression is straightforward but smart. You earn XP for stylish kills, headshots, combos. You build into different skill trees, either more precision-focused, defensive, or dual-wield gunslinger style. It gives you just enough customization to shape your version of Silas without bogging things down. It's about 6 to 7 hours long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Missions are clean, focused, varied. You're bouncing between dusty towns, mines, trains, canyons. There's forward momentum constantly. It doesn't get bloated with filler objectives. It understands that an FPS campaign thrives on rhythm, combat beat, movement beat, story beat, escalation. Now, is everything perfect? Well, hell nah. Enemy variety can get repetitive. A few sequences drag a little. Some boss encounters lean into arena-style waves that feel slightly gamey. But honestly, the momentum carries it. The shooting is satisfying enough that you don't mind leaning into another firefight. This is like peak Call of Duty campaign right here. The story picks up after the first Modern Warfare, and it's just this escalating action movie from start to finish. You've got Captain Price, you've got Soap, who's now leading Task Force 141, you've got this new villain General Shepard, who's actually on your side at first, and then there's Makarov, who's this Russian ultra-nationalist terrorist. And the plot is like Tom Clancy on steroids. There's betrayal, there's this whole thing where Russia invades America. It's just non-stop crazy escalation. The missions are just iconic, man. Like, you've got the favela level in Brazil, where you're chasing this arms dealer through the slums, and it's just this intense running gunfight. You've got the Gulag prison break, where you're rescuing a prisoner, and it's all snowy and atmospheric. There's Wolverines, where you're fighting through a destroyed American suburb that's been invaded by Russian forces, and it's such a surreal setting for a Call of Duty game. This game is the reason people, I think, that kept buying Call of Duty every year, besides multiplayer, I guess, which I am not a fan of. I do not like multiplayer games at all, so yeah. Like, after this, everyone wanted to see what crazy set piece the next game would have, and while some of the later games tried to outdo MW2's spectacle, I don't think any of them captured that same magic. Black Ops was great in different ways. Modern Warfare 3 tried to continue the story, but it wasn't quite the same. MW2 was just lightning in a bottle, and we all know what the fucking state of Call of Duty campaign even is these days, so that's that. Halo Reach is like, it's probably my favorite Halo campaign, and I know that's like a hot take for some people because, you know, everybody has their favorite, whether it's Combat Evolved or Halo 2 or 3, but for me, Reach just hits different. The game starts with your helmet, your visor cracked and broken on the ground, and you know that this is a story about failure. This is about the fall of Reach, and there's something about that just really stuck with me. So like the setup is you play as Noble 6, and you're the newest member of Noble Team, which is this group of Spartan soldiers, and unlike Master Chief, who's like this legendary one-man army, you're part of a team here. And I think what really makes this campaign special is that it has weight to it. Like every mission feels important and feels desperate. You're not going in like Master Chief saving the day at the last second, but rather watching things fall apart. The gameplay itself is just, it's Halo at its best. Like the gunplay in Reach is so satisfying. The DMR feels incredible. The assault rifle, the Magnum, the needle rifle, all of it just feels weighty and powerful. And I think that's what makes Reach so special as an FPS campaign. Like most shooters, you're the hero, you save the day, you win. But in Reach, you're just one soldier in a massive war doing your part, and that feels more human, more relatable to me. And like, I know some people prefer the more bombastic, heroic tone of the other Halo games, and that's totally valid. But for me, Reach's tone is perfect for what it's trying to do. It's a war story, it's gritty and grounded, at least by Halo standards. Okay, so Far Cry 3. This is the one that really put Far Cry on the map, man. Like, the first game was fine, Far Cry 2 was interesting, but divisive, and then Far Cry 3 came out in 2012, and it was just like, oh, okay, this is what this series should be. This is the formula. You play as Jason Brody, and you're on vacation in the Rook Islands with your friends and your brothers, just partying and having fun. And then you get captured by pirates led by this psychopath named Voss, and he's gonna sell you all into slavery. Voss is like the main draw of this game. He's one of the best video game villains ever. He's terrifying, unpredictable, he's charismatic. The gameplay loop is what made this game so addictive and what every Far Cry since has copied. You've got this big open world island to explore, and it's covered in enemy outposts that you can liberate. And taking over outposts is just so satisfying. You can scout them out with your camera and tag all the enemies, then you can approach however you want. Snipe everyone from a distance, sneak in and stealth kill everyone, set animals loose to cause chaos, go in loud with explosives, and when you clear an outpost, that area becomes safe and you unlock fast travel and side missions. It's such a good progression system that makes you want to keep clearing the map. You've got hunting, where you kill animals to craft bigger ammo pouches and weapon holsters and stuff. You've got this skill tree where you unlock new abilities. There's these cool takedown animations that you unlock that make you feel like a badass. Like you can chain stealth kills together or do a takedown and then throw your knife at another guy. It's all really satisfying. The guns feel good. There's a nice variety of weapons, from pistols to assault rifles to sniper rifles to RPGs to a flamethrower. The bow is probably the most fun weapon because it's silent and you can use it for stealth, but when things go loud, the shotguns and LMGs are really satisfying. You can also use signature weapons, which are these unique modded guns that you unlock by doing certain challenges, and they're all really good. The island itself is gorgeous, man. It's this lush tropical environment with beaches and jungles and mountains and caves. The graphics still hold up pretty well, and just exploring the world is enjoyable. You'll be driving along and you'll see a hang glider, so you jump off a cliff and glide around, or you'll find a zip line, or you'll get into a random firefight with pirates. There's always something happening, which keeps things interesting, but can also get exhausting after a while. If you haven't played Far Cry 3, it's worth checking out just to see where this whole formula came from, and to experience Voss. The gameplay holds up, the island is fun to explore, and even though the story is messy and the characters are hit or miss, it's still a really solid open world shooter. This is absolutely one of the most mechanically satisfying sci-fi campaigns you can play. It is a straight-up immersive sim. You play as Morgan Yu, and the game is essentially a massive interconnected mega dungeon in space. You are dealing with an alien outbreak of these creatures called Typhon, and you have to survive and figure out what happened to you. The enemy design actually forces you to change how you look at a video game environment. The lowest level enemies are called mimics, and they can shapeshift to disguise themselves as ordinary objects. You walk into a room and your brain immediately starts analyzing every coffee cup, every chair, every single little object, because any of them could be an alien waiting to jump at your face. You learn to distrust the environment entirely, smashing everything with your wrench just to be safe. But the gameplay loop is where it becomes a really good full meal. You upgrade Morgan using neuromods, which act as skill trees where you can unlock human abilities like hacking or increased health, and eventually you can even scan the aliens to take their powers. You can mimic objects yourself, meaning you can literally turn into a teacup and roll through a tiny crack in a glass window to get into a locked room. It makes you think completely outside the box. And I gotta talk about the glue cannon. It is a delightfully game-breaking piece of hardware. It shoots out this foam-like substance that hardens instantly. You can use it to freeze enemies in place, but more importantly, you can use it to build your own paths. You can shoot blobs of it against a wall to create makeshift staircases and climb up to a rafter or a hidden ventilation shaft, totally bypassing locked doors and security systems. It feels immensely satisfying to outsmart the level design using your own physics and momentum. The world building here is incredible. You are trapped on Talos 1, a massive research space station orbiting the moon at the Earth-Moon L2 Lagrange point in the year 2032. The visual style is gorgeous, going for this incredible 1960s Art Deco retro-futurism, with lots of corporate luxury, wood, leather, and old tape reel computers mixed with futuristic tech. It really sells the idea that this is a private corporate venture by a company called TranStar. The game's quietest moments are its best, because you are just soaking in the tension. You are taking your time, reading the emails left behind by the crew, and hauling scrap back to the recycler machines to physically 3D print your own ammo and resources. There is no smoke and mirrors behind the level design. If you need to get to another sector, you can literally go out an airlock, do a spacewalk around the exterior rings of the station, and fly into a different section. It gives you this overwhelming sense of isolation and scale. This game is just a masterclass in player choice and level design. Like, this is one of those games where every player's experience can be completely different based on how they approach it. You play as Corvo Atano, and you're the bodyguard to the Empress of this city called Dunwall. And right at the start, things go bad. The Empress is assassinated, her daughter Emily gets kidnapped, and you get framed for it. So you escape, you join up with this resistance group called the Loyalists, and they're helping you take down the people who orchestrated all of this so you can rescue Emily and clear your name. It's a revenge story, basically. But how you execute that revenge is completely up to you. The setting is what really makes this game special, man. Dunwall is this industrial Victorian-era city that runs on whale oil, and there's a plague ravaging the population spread by rats. It's got this really unique aesthetic. It's like steampunk, but darker and grittier. The art direction is incredible. It's got this painted look to it, almost like a moving painting. Everything is angular and stylized in this really distinct way, and the city feels oppressive and dying. There are plague victims everywhere, the city watch is brutal, there are these tall boys walking around on stilts. It's just such a well-realized world. The gameplay is all about giving you a toolkit and letting you figure out how to use it. You get supernatural powers from this entity called the Outsider. You can teleport short distances with Blink, which is probably the most useful power in the game. You can possess animals and people. You can stop time. You can summon rats to eat people. You can see through walls. And then you've got your sword, your pistol, your crossbow, various gadgets like spring razors and sticky grenades. And every mission is designed with multiple paths and multiple solutions. Like, you can go full stealth and never be seen, never kill anyone. Or you can go lethal stealth where you're sneaking around but killing everyone. Or you can just go loud and fight your way through. And the game tracks this with a chaos system. The more people you kill, the higher your chaos. And higher chaos means more rats, more plague victims, darker story outcomes. Lower chaos means things are better, fewer enemies, more hopeful outcomes. So your playstyle actually affects the world and the story, which is really cool. The level design is some of the best in any game ever, dude. Like, take the Boyle Mansion mission. You're infiltrating this masquerade party to assassinate someone, and there are so many ways to approach it. You can sneak in through the sewers, you can possess someone to get past the guards, you can go through the upstairs windows, you can blend in at the party, and once you're inside, there are multiple ways to complete the objective. Some lethal, some non-lethal. Every mission has this kind of depth. And the non-lethal options are really creative. Like, you're not just knocking people out, you're finding these elaborate ways to neutralize your targets without killing them. Sometimes these non-lethal solutions are darker than just killing the person, which is a cool touch. The game really makes you think about the consequences of your actions. The sword combat is pretty simple. You can block and parry and counterattack, but it's not super deep. The game is clearly designed more around stealth and using your powers creatively. But if you do get into a fight, it's satisfying enough. The pistol and crossbow feel good, and there are different bolt types like sleep darts for non-lethal takedowns. Now, the game is pretty short, like 8 to 10 hours for a first playthrough, but the replayability is insane. Like, I've played through Dishonored multiple times doing different builds and different playstyles, and it feels fresh every time. A ghost run where you don't kill anyone and never get detected is a completely different experience from a high chaos murder spree run. Okay, so Crysis from 2007, this is the game that became a meme because of how demanding it was on PC hardware. Like, but can it run Crysis was a thing for years. And yeah, it was absurdly demanding when it came out, but there's a reason for that. This game was ahead of its time graphically, and it still looks pretty damn good today. You play as Nomad, and you're part of the special ops team wearing these nano suits that give you superhuman abilities. You get deployed to this island in the Philippines to rescue some hostages from North Korean forces, and of course, things get way more complicated than that. The setup is solid, and the island setting is gorgeous. The nanosuit is what makes this game special, man. You've got 4 modes you can switch between on the fly: maximum strength, maximum speed, maximum armor, and cloak. Strength lets you jump higher, punch through walls, throw objects really far. Speed lets you sprint super fast. Armor absorbs damage, and cloak makes you invisible for short periods. And you're constantly switching between these modes based on the situation, and it creates this really dynamic combat where you have all these options for how to approach encounters. Like, you'll scope out an enemy base, and you can cloak and sneak through silently, or you can activate strength and just throw a car at everyone, or you can armor up and go in guns blazing, or you can speed through and flank them. The game gives you these sandbox environments with multiple paths, and it just lets you experiment. And when you combine the nanosuit powers with the various weapons and attachments, you have so much flexibility in your playstyle. The guns feel good too. You've got your standard military arsenal, assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, sniper rifles, rocket launchers, and the weapon customization is really cool. You can swap between different scopes, different fire modes, attachments, all on the fly. The FY71 assault rifle is probably my go-to weapon, but the Gauss rifle you get later is just ridiculously fun. One-shot kills on pretty much anything. The island environment is what really shows off the graphics, dude. Like, you've got these dense jungles with realistic vegetation that actually reacts to you. Beaches, cliffs, enemy compounds, and the lighting is incredible, especially for 2007. The way sunlight filters through the trees, the way water looks, the destruction physics where you can blow up buildings. It was groundbreaking of the time, and it's still impressive now. The first half of the game is the strongest part, where you're fighting North Korean forces in this open jungle environment. You can approach objectives however you want. The levels are big and give you room to experiment with the nanosuit. It's pure sandbox FPS gameplay, and it's so satisfying. Like, you'll plan out this elaborate attack, cloak in, take out a few guys silently, get spotted, armor up and fight your way out, then speed away to reposition. It's great. The AI is actually pretty smart, especially the human enemies. They'll flank you, they'll call for reinforcements, they'll suppress you with fire. If you're cloaked, they'll notice footprints or detect your heat signature if you're too close for too long. It keeps you on your toes and makes the stealth feel more engaging because you can't just cloak and walk past everyone without thinking. Now let's talk about the performance, because that's a big part of Crysis's legacy. This game was so demanding that pretty much no one could max it out at launch. Like, you needed hardware from the future to run it on very high settings at 60 FPS. And even today, while it runs way better on modern PCs, it's still not the most optimized game. The Crysis remastered version runs better and looks even better, so if you're playing now, that's probably the way to go. The game is also just really long compared to most modern shooters. Like, it's probably 10 to 12 hours for a first playthrough, which is great value value, but the pacing can feel a bit drawn out in places. Some missions feel longer than they need to be, but the freedom it gives you is just unmatched, man. Like, this was the peak of the sandbox shooter before everything became more streamlined and linear. You had these big open areas and a bunch of tools, and the game just said, figure it out. And that's so refreshing compared to a lot of modern shooters that are constantly telling you exactly where to go and what to do. The set pieces are cool too, like there are these big moments that are really memorable, and the VTL sequence is intense. The game does a good job of mixing up the gameplay with vehicle sections and different types of encounters. You'll be in a tank at one point, you'll be driving jeeps, you'll be using mounted guns. Battlefield 1 from 2016, and this game was such a breath of fresh air. Like, everyone was doing futuristic shooters with jetpacks and wall running, and DICE was just like, nah, we're going back to World War I. And it worked so well. This is probably the best Battlefield campaign, or at least tied with Bad Company 2. The campaign is structured around these war stories, which are basically separate short campaigns from different perspectives across the war. You're not playing as one character through the whole thing, you're jumping between different soldiers in different theaters of war. And this structure works really well because each story has its own tone and gameplay focus, and none of them overstay their welcome. They're like 30 to 45 minutes each, so they're punchy and focused. Prologue sets the tone perfectly. You're a Harlem hellfighter in the trenches, and the game makes it very clear that you're not a superhero. You're going to die, and when you do, you see the soldier's name and birth and death dates, and then you become a different soldier. And you keep dying and switching soldiers until eventually everyone's dead. It's heavy. It's not glorifying war. It's showing you how brutal World War I was, and that tone carries through the whole campaign. Each war story focuses on something different. You've got Through Mud and Blood, where you're a British tank crew member, and it's about a bond between the crew as you're driving this early tank across the Western Front. Friends in High Places, where you're a pilot, and the dogfighting sections are really cool. The variety is great because one story might be more vehicle focused, another is more stealth, another is more traditional run and gun, and they all feel distinct from each other. Like, the tank story has you managing this slow, lumbering vehicle and dealing with mechanical problems. The pilot story has dogfighting and you're switching between planes. The desert story has you riding horses and doing sabotage missions. The gunplay feels weighty and satisfying. World War I weapons are slower and more deliberate than modern guns. Bolt-action rifles, early SMGs, heavy machine guns. Everything has this chunky, mechanical feel to it that fits the era perfectly, and melee combat with bayonets and shovels and clubs feels brutal and desperate. The vehicles are fun to control too. Tanks are slow but powerful, planes handle well, and dogfighting is satisfying. Even the horses feel good to ride. And the game mixes up when you're on foot and when you're in vehicles pretty well, so it doesn't get stale. Now, the war stories aren't super long. You can probably finish all of them in like 5-6 hours total. So if you're looking for a lengthy campaign, this isn't it. But what's there is really high quality and focused. No filler, just solid missions with good pacing. Each story tells a complete arc, and then you move on to the next one. So, the setup. And I love the setup of this game so much because it is just such a creative, interesting premise that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough in the broader conversation about FPS stories. It's an alternate history. World War II never really happened the way we know it, because in the late 1940s, this alien race called the Chimera they emerged from Russia and started sweeping across Europe and Asia, consuming everything in their path. And by the time the game starts, most of Europe is gone. Just gone. Overrun. And you are Sergeant Nathan Hale, an American soldier who was part of a last-ditch Allied operation to try and push back against the Chimera on British soil, because England is basically the last major holdout, and the whole game takes place across this alternate version of England that has been partially consumed and transformed by the Chimera. And like, that's just such a cool canvas to paint on, right? Like, you've got these recognizable English cities and landmarks and countryside and architecture, but everything is wrong. Everything has been twisted and corrupted and covered in this alien biomass and these bizarre Chimera structures, and it creates this atmosphere that is genuinely unlike anything else in the genre, because it's not just a sci-fi world, it's our world gone wrong, and that dissonance is really effective. And the Chimera themselves, man, like, the enemy design in this game is just fantastic, because they're not just aliens, like, they're not little gray men or big bug monsters or whatever. The Chimera are hybrids. They take human bodies and they convert them, they transform them through this whole infection process into these different chimera Chimera variants. And so there's this really unsettling quality to them where, like, you know these things used to be people. You know somewhere in there is what was once a human being, and different strains of the process produce different types of enemies. Also, the level design is really good too. Like, I think Resistance does a great job of taking you through a variety of environments that all feel distinct and purposeful. You start in this town called Grimsby, and then you move through Manchester and London and Nottingham and these other locations, and each one has its own character. And the scale of the Chimera invasion is just so well communicated throughout. Like, everywhere you go, there are signs of what happened. There are these conversion centers where humans were being processed into Chimera. There are these massive constructions the Chimera have built that are just alien and wrong and huge. There's a real sense that this war has been going on for a while, and humanity has been losing badly, and what you're doing is like this desperate last gasp effort. And that weight, that feeling of being behind, of fighting uphill against something that has already consumed most of the world, it's really present throughout the whole campaign, and it makes the stakes feel genuinely high in a way that a lot of shooters kind of fail at. And I think that's kind of the legacy of Resistance Fall of Man, right? Like, it launched the whole trilogy, it was one of the defining PS3 games of that generation, and it proved that you could do something genuinely original and inventive within the FPS space and have it land. Jumping back into Half-Life 2, and it immediately reminded me why this is absolutely required playing. It's a pretty simple setup. You are Gordon Freeman, waking up on a train pulling into City 17, and from that exact second, the game never takes control away from you. There are no breaks, no camera cuts away from your perspective. It is just a good-ass game, and I want to talk about it because it absolutely humiliates a lot of modern shooters with how well it holds up. My best pitch really is, if you're tired of modern shooters feeling weightless and scripted, Half-Life 2 is definitely for you. The raw gameplay is built entirely around its physics engine. Sure, you have your standard guns, but the gravity gun is where the game becomes a really good full meal. This tool means you are using physics and momentum to really scramble your way through encounters. You have to actually think like a survivor. You start looking for the tiniest little objects, a stray saw blade, an explosive barrel, or even just a heavy radiator that you can launch at the Combine forces. Every move becomes deliberate. It makes your brain start to think differently about the environment. You aren't just shooting, you are assessing the room to see what you can manipulate to save your own skin. The story overall is phenomenal, but it's the quiet storytelling that really works for me. The game does a really good job setting things up naturally. You get to kind of fill in the blanks while characters talk directly to you in real time. City 17 is this incredibly grounded dystopian sci-fi world. You see the massive citadel scraping the sky, and the oppressive Combine architecture literally swallowing up these old Eastern European buildings. It just feels like a real lived-in place, without relying on any crazy fantasy elements to sell the scale. Okay, so Doom Eternal, dude. Like, this game is just, it's insane. It's one of the most intense, adrenaline-pumping FPS campaigns I've ever played, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like, if you played Doom 2016 and you thought that was fast and aggressive, Eternal just cranks everything up to 11. It takes what 2016 did, and it's like, okay, that was cool, but what if we made it faster, harder, more complicated, and way more over the top? And somehow it works. Like, it shouldn't work, but it absolutely does. So the story picks up after Doom 2016, and Earth is basically, it's hell on Earth. Like, literally, hell has invaded Earth, and most of humanity is dead or transformed into demons, and you're the Doomslayer, and your job is to go around and just absolutely murder every demon you see, while also trying to stop the Hell Priests who are orchestrating this whole invasion. And like, the story in Eternal is way more ambitious than 2016. They really lean into the lore, the ancient history of the Doomslayer, the Sentinels, the Makers, all this cosmic mythology stuff. And honestly, like, some people found it a bit much. Some people were like, I don't need all this lore, I just want to shoot demons. But for me, I actually kind of dug it. Like, yeah, it's a bit goofy, it's a bit over the top, but it adds this like epic scope to everything. You're not just some guy fighting demons, you're this ancient immortal warrior who's been doing this for eons, and the demons literally fear you. Like, you're the villain in their story, and that's just such a cool concept. But real talk, the story is not why you're here. You're here for the combat, and oh man, the combat in Doom Eternal is just, it's like a perfectly tuned machine. It's a dance, dude. It's like you're constantly moving, constantly swapping weapons, constantly making split-second decisions about which enemy to target and how to take them out. And the game forces you to engage with all of its systems. Like in Doom 2016, you could kind of just pick your favorite weapon and stick with it for most of the game. But in Eternal, you can't do that. You will run out of ammo. The game is designed so that you have to use your entire arsenal, and you have to use it strategically. And the game throws so many enemies at you at once. Like you'll be fighting a dozen different demon types all at the same time in these big arenas, and each demon type has different weaknesses and different strategies. Like you got your basic imps and zombies, but then you got cacodemons, and the best way to take them out is to shoot a grenade or a sticky bomb into their mouth, and it staggers them instantly so you can glory kill them. The movement in this game is so important. Like you have to keep moving. If you stand still, you're dead. You're constantly running, jumping, double jumping, air dashing, climbing, swinging on monkey bars, using jump pads, using launch pads. The levels are designed with all this verticality in these platforming sections, which was a pretty big change from 2016. Like 2016 was mostly just running and gunning, but Eternal has all these first-person platforming sections where you're jumping from platform to platform, swinging on bars, wall climbing, and some people didn't love that. Some people were like, I'm here to shoot demons, not do platforming. But I actually thought it was a nice change of pace. Like it breaks up the combat, it gives you a moment to breathe, and it makes the levels feel more varied and interesting. And honestly, the platforming controls are pretty tight. Like it's not frustrating, it's not janky, it works well. And the weapon variety, man. Okay, so you got the combat shotgun with either the sticky bomb mod or the full auto mod. You got the heavy cannon, which is like an assault rifle, and it's got the micro missiles or the precision bolt scope. The plasma rifle with the heat blast or the microwave beam. The rocket launcher. The ballista, which is like a one-shot high damage lightning gun. The chain gun with the mobile turret mod or the energy shield mod. The super shotgun, which is just iconic. And now it has the meat hook, which is this grappling hook that pulls you towards enemies, and it's amazing for mobility and for closing distance to get shotgun blasts in. And then you got the BFG 9000 and the Unmaker, which are your oh shit weapons for when things get really crazy. And you're constantly switching between all these weapons because of the ammo management. Like you can't just hold down the trigger with one weapon, you'll run out of ammo in seconds. So you're swapping, you're using weapon mods, you're quick swapping between weapons to maximize damage. Like there's this tech where you can fire the ballista and immediately quick swap to the super shotgun or the rocket launcher and fire that, and then swap back, and you're just pumping out huge damage in quick succession. And once you learn these techniques, the combat becomes even more fluid and satisfying. So yeah, Doom Eternal, man. It's fast, it's aggressive, it's challenging, it's over the top. The combat is some of the best in the genre. The movement is fluid and satisfying, the weapons are varied and fun. Just a good shooter overall. Jumping back into Borderlands 2, just looking for something cool, I was reminded why it absolutely belongs here. It's really simple, but I want to talk about it because I try and just really talk about stuff I like, and this is just a good-ass game. It's definitely a little janky in some of its older UI menus, and it is definitely for a certain type of player, but I walked away really enjoying my time with the core shooting loop. My best pitch really is if you played a shooter where you actually have to think about your rhythm, managing your reloads, using cover, and choosing your engagements deliberately, Borderlands 2 is gonna hook you. You play as a vault hunter dropped onto Pandora, and the game is straight up a massive 30+ hour adventure. Most of it really is the raw gameplay of starting at the bottom with a rusty pistol and physically over the course of the entire game climbing the power ladder. The gunplay is what makes it a full meal. Because the guns are procedurally generated, your brain starts to think a little differently. Every time you pick up a new weapon, it fundamentally changes the speed and rhythm of your gunplay. You might find an assault rifle with a massive magazine but a painfully slow reload time. That means you can run and gun for longer, but you need to guarantee you have solid cover at the end of that clip so you don't get blown away. Every move becomes deliberate. You have to actually think like a survivor, making the most of whatever scrapped together hardware you can find. The story overall has a lot of loud, bombastic cutscenes with Handsome Jack constantly taunting you over the radio, but the game's quietest moments are honestly some of its best. It's the tension. It's wandering through the freezing southern shelf or the sprawling deserts of the dust. You get some really crazy sunsets and incredible vistas. Obviously, they're not going for photorealistic graphics, they're going for that thick-lined, cel-shaded comic book style, and I think it absolutely works. You are constantly exploring, assessing bandit camps from a distance, and looking for the right angle to attack. And then there are the little things you find along the way. Audio logs from the people who live there, notes from other characters. They actually tie back into what you are doing. It does a great job setting you up to take something away from the world of Pandora.
Somebody delivered a beast!
Deus Ex: Human Revolution. This came out in 2011 and it's a prequel to the original Deus Ex from 2000. And this game is special because it's one of those immersive sims where you can approach basically every situation however you want, and the game actually respects that and accommodates it. You play as Adam Jensen, and he's the head of security at this company called Seraph Industries that makes cybernetic augmentations like prosthetic limbs and implants that enhance people. And early on, something happens that forces Adam to get heavily augmented himself, and now he's investigating this larger conspiracy about augmentation technology and corporate interests. The setup is really strong, and the cyberpunk world is just incredibly well realized. The gameplay is where this really shines. Every mission, every objective, you can tackle it multiple ways. You want to go full stealth and ghost through without anyone seeing you? You can do that. You want to hack everything and use the environment to your advantage? That works. You want to go in guns blazing? Yeah, you can do that too. Though the game definitely favors stealth and non-lethal approaches, and you're constantly making choices about how to handle situations. Like, do you talk your way past a guard, or sneak around him, or knock him out, or just shoot him? And all of these are valid.
Take this and get out of here. Thanks, man. I won't forget this.
The augmentation system is so cool. You earn experience points and praxis kits that you use to unlock new augmentations. You can get cloaking that makes you invisible for short periods. You can punch through walls. You can hack more effectively. You can reduce fall damage so you can drop from higher places. You can see through walls, jump higher, run quieter, lift heavy objects, and you're constantly deciding how to build Adam based on your playstyle, which gives you a lot of agency in how the game plays. The hub areas are incredible. Like, you've got Detroit and Hengsha, which are these cyberpunk cities you can explore, and they're packed with side quests and secrets and just environmental storytelling. You can break into apartments, you can hack computers and read emails that fill in the world, you can talk to random NPCs, and the atmosphere in these cities is just perfect. It's got that Blade Runner vibe with the neon lights and the dark alleys and the corporate buildings towering over everything. The art direction is so good. It's got this gold and black color palette that gives it a really distinct look. Now, I gotta be honest about the flaws, because there are some. The boss fights in the original version were terrible. Like, the whole game lets you play non-lethally and stealthy, and then it forces you into these arena boss fights where you have to kill someone. And if you built Adam for stealth and hacking, you're just screwed. It was really bad. The director's cut fixed this by giving you more options during boss fights, so if you're playing now, get that version. The gunplay is okay, but not amazing. Like, if you're going combat focused, the shooting is serviceable, but it's not as tight as a pure shooter. The game is clearly designed more around stealth and using your augmentations creatively. If you like immersive sims, if you like games that give you options and let you roleplay, if you like cyberpunk settings, Deus Ex: Human Revolution is essential. It's one of those games where you can have completely different experiences based on how you play. My first playthrough, I went full stealth, non-lethal, and my second playthrough, I was way more aggressive, and it felt like a different game, and both were satisfying in their own ways. Just make sure you get the director's cut version so you don't have to deal with those awful original boss fights.
That's not a big
Battlefield Hardline. I know, I already know what some people are gonna say the second they see this one. This wasn't even a real Battlefield game, and like, I hear you, but also like, sit down for a second, because I think this game gets done dirty in the broader conversation, and I want to actually talk about it properly, because the campaign specifically, like the campaign of Battlefield Hardline, is genuinely one of the most underrated and undersold FPS campaigns of that whole generation, and I think it deserves a real, honest look. So first, context. Battlefield Hardline came out in 2015, developed by Visceral Games, the guys behind Dead Space, which is already like an interesting combination, right? Like, you take the studio that made one of the greatest survival horror games ever made and you hand them a Battlefield game, and the direction they went was, we're not doing military, we're not doing jets and tanks and Battlefield 4's whole cinematic war movie thing, we're doing cops and criminals, we're doing a crime drama, we're doing a TV show. And I think that pivot, that specific creative decision, is both the most interesting thing about this game and also the reason a lot of people bounced off it immediately. Because if you came in expecting Battlefield 4 with a police skin, you were always going to be disappointed. But if you came in open to what Visceral was actually trying to do, there is a genuinely really fun and surprisingly well-crafted single-player experience here. And the TV show thing is not just marketing speak, it's not just a gimmick. Like, Visceral actually committed to that format in a way that I found really refreshing. The campaign is structured as episodes, like actual TV episodes, with a cold open, a cliffhanger ending, a previously on recap at the start of each one, and between episodes there is this evidence board, almost like a detective's murder board, where you're piecing together the larger conspiracy you're investigating, connecting names and locations and events, and like, that's such a cool structural choice because it makes the whole campaign feel like you're watching and playing a prestige crime show at the same time. And for that era of peak TV, Breaking Bad, The Wire, True Detective were all in the cultural conversation, and Visceral was clearly inspired by all of that, and it really shows. And the story is actually pretty solid, like better than it has any right to be for a Battlefield game. You are Nick Mendoza, a Miami PD detective, and you start the game as this idealistic cop genuinely trying to do good, trying to bring down a drug operation tearing through the city. Now, the gameplay, and this is where I think Hardline does something really interesting that I don't think gets enough credit. The game actually encourages you, rewards you for not killing everybody. Like, there's a whole non-lethal system built into the campaign where you can use your police badge to arrest enemies instead of shooting them. You flash your badge, enemies put their hands up if you've got them by surprise, and you cuff them and rack up arrest points. And if you clear an area non-lethally, you get a score bonus and extra resources, and it just feels good. Like, it actually makes you feel like a cop rather than just a soldier in a different outfit. And the stealth elements that support this are surprisingly well developed. You've got a scanner you use to tag enemies and find their patrol routes and identify the ones carrying special items, and you can pull off these whole sequences where you just ghost through an encounter, tagging and arresting everyone without firing a single shot, and it's just deeply satisfying in this way that feels completely different from any other Battlefield campaign.
Obviously, you have no idea who I am, because if you did, you would not be stealing from me.
But then there's also the option to just absolutely go loud and start blasting, and the game handles that really well too, because at the end of the day, this is still a Battlefield game, and the gunplay is solid. Like, the weapons feel good, they're punchy and responsive, and when you do decide to just cut loose in a big open area and let chaos happen, it has that Battlefield sandbox quality where things just escalate and combust in ways you didn't plan. Like, you throw a breaching charge through a window and set off a chain reaction that takes out half the room, and you just kind of shrug and smile. That stuff is still very much alive in Hardline. Here is genuinely the thing. Battlefield Hardline's campaign is one of the most purely fun and entertaining FPS campaigns of the PS4 and Xbox One generation. Like, if you just remove all the baggage, remove the Battlefield expectations, remove the multiplayer discourse, and just sit down and play through this campaign, you are going to have a really decent time, because Visceral Games cared about this thing. Like, you can feel that they genuinely had a vision for what they wanted this to be, and they executed it with craft and enthusiasm. The story is engaging, the structure is creative, the gameplay loop of stealth and action and arrest mechanics is genuinely inventive, and the whole cop drama aesthetic is just so different from everything else in the FPS space that it gives the whole thing this personality, this identity that a lot of safer, more conventional games just don't have. Now, this isn't a run-and-gun FPS, but still has an amazing first-person campaign. I don't think people were fully prepared for how good this was going to be. It is a first-person action-adventure game set between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade, and that timeline placement is so smart because it gives you this fully established indie. Like, this is the Indiana Jones we know and love, confident and experienced and brilliant and charming and deeply, deeply flawed in the best ways. But it's also before the events of Last Crusade, so there's room to tell a completely original story that doesn't have to navigate navigate around existing film events. And the story they tell is just, it's so good. Like, it is genuinely a great Indiana Jones story that absolutely could have been a film. And I don't say that lightly because Indiana Jones stories are hard to do well. Like, the character demands a certain quality, a certain standard, and this thing clears that bar pretty comfortably. The story starts at Marshall College, like right there in the familiar space, Indy's office and the classroom and everything, and immediately it just feels right. Like the production design, the attention to detail in those opening spaces, the way everything looks and feels period appropriate for the late 1930s, it's just immediately immersive and immediately reassuring. Like, okay, these people did their homework, these people care, and then pretty quickly things escalate and Indy is pulled into this mystery involving a relic being stolen from the college, and it snowballs into this massive globe-trotting conspiracy involving this ancient secret called the Great Circle, which is this concept about these sites of immense power arranged in a geometric pattern around the Earth. And the investigation takes you to Vatican City and Egypt and Thailand and the Himalayas and these other incredible locations, and each one is just this lush, detailed, fully realized world to explore and investigate. And that globe-trotting quality, that sense of going from one exotic, distinct corner of the world to the next following a thread of clues and mystery, like that is so Indiana Jones.
Nice view.
Now let's talk about how this thing actually plays, because I think the gameplay is where Machine Games made some really bold and really smart decisions. So it's first person, which people had opinions about that going in. Like some people were like, why isn't this third person? I want to see Indy, I want to see the hat and jacket. And I get that instinct, I completely understand it. But like playing it, it just works so well in first person, because it puts you so completely inside the experience. Like when you're in a gorgeous Egyptian temple and you're looking around at these incredible hieroglyphics and ancient mechanisms and torchlight flickering on stone walls, being in first person makes you feel like you are actually there in a way that third person just doesn't achieve. And when the whip cracks and you're swinging across a gap in first person, it just has this visceral immediacy that is just thrilling. And the way you physically use your hands to interact with the environment, like picking up objects and examining them, flipping through Indy's journal, actually physically placing items, there's this tactile quality to it that makes the world feel incredibly real and grounded. And the whip, oh man, the whip. Like Machine Games clearly spent a significant amount of time making the whip feel absolutely perfect, because it does. Like it genuinely does. The weight of it, the sound of it, the way it cracks and wraps around things, it is just deeply satisfying to use in every context. Like you use it to swing across gaps and it feels like a genuine leap of faith every time. You use it to disarm enemies and yank weapons out of their hands. You use it to pull guards off ledges or yank them off their feet. You use it to grab and pull environmental objects. You use it to solve puzzles. Like the whip is just woven into basically every aspect of the gameplay in this really organic way, and it never gets old because there's always a new use case, always a new context where cracking it just feels fantastic. And the combat. So the combat is brawling focused, like it's not a shooter. Indy has a gun, but he doesn't particularly like using it, and the game reflects that. The core of combat is this melee system built around hitting people with your fists and with whatever objects you can grab from the environment. But you can also avoid combat entirely a lot of the time, and honestly the game really encourages that because Indy is not an action hero in a conventional sense. He gets knocked around, he gets hurt, and running away or sneaking past enemies is very much a valid and actually thematically appropriate approach. And then there's the exploration and the puzzle solving, which is honestly where the game really shines in a special way, because the levels, and I want to emphasize this, the levels are big. Like they are genuinely large, detailed, living environments with tons of optional content, hidden tombs to find, artifacts to collect, side quests that add a real depth to the world, letters and documents that flesh out the story, puzzles tucked away in corners that you can find or miss depending on how thoroughly you explore. Like the Vatican level especially is just this massive, gorgeous, layered environment that you can spend hours in just finding stuff. And the ancient tombs and temples you discover and raid throughout the game are just, they're the highlight, honestly. Like, look, is it a perfect game? I mean, the combat can occasionally feel a little rough in some of the bigger encounters. Like when you've got multiple enemies coming at you from different angles, it can get a little chaotic in a way that's not always satisfying. And there are moments in the back half of the campaign where the pacing tightens up a little more than you'd want. Like it gets a touch more linear and action forward in a couple of stretches than the open exploratory stuff that precedes it. And I think some people are going to wish for even more of those big open exploratory levels, because those are just so good that you want the whole game to be that. But like those are genuinely minor things. Like they don't add up to anything that meaningfully undermines what this game is doing and what it achieves. And like, I've wanted a great Indiana Jones game for basically my entire life. Like, this is one of those games that I bring up in conversations and people either immediately light up and go, yes, absolutely, one of the most underrated games of that generation, or they kind of tilt their head and go, wait, that game with the tentacles? And like, yes, that game with the tentacles. And I need people to understand what this game is, because I think it genuinely doesn't get talked about enough in the broader FPS conversation, and it absolutely deserves to be. Like, this thing came out in 2012, and it just kind of existed in the space where not enough people found it, and that is just genuinely a shame, because what they built here is this really special, really distinct, really emotionally resonant experience that does things almost no other shooter was doing at the time, or honestly has done since. So you are Jackie Estacado, and if you played the first game, you know exactly who Jackie is and why he matters, and if you didn't, the game does a decent job of getting you up to speed. Jackie is the Don of a New York crime family, the Estacado family, and he is also the current host of an ancient supernatural entity called the Darkness, like a literal primordial force of evil that lives inside him and manifests as these two demonic tentacles that erupt from his back, and which he can use to fight, to kill, to interact with the world. And the Darkness gives him all these incredible powers, but it also comes with this cost, this weight, this constant presence of something ancient and hungry and not entirely on his side, living inside of him. And the tension between Jackie and the Darkness, between the human and the entity, is just such a rich dynamic that the whole game is built around. Now, the gameplay, and this is where the Darkness 2 just really does something special, because the actual act of playing this game is unlike basically any other FPS, because you have 4 limbs, like functionally 4 limbs. Your 2 human arms hold guns, your 2 Darkness tentacles are these separate, constantly present appendages that have their own attacks and their own interactions with the environment, and the quad wielding system, because that's really what it is, quad wielding, is just this deeply satisfying and deeply creative combat system that once you get the hang of it, just flows in this incredible way. Like, so in practice, what this looks like is you're moving through a space and you've got your guns out, let's say 2 pistols or an SMG and a pistol or whatever, and you're shooting guys while simultaneously using your left tentacle to grab environmental objects like a dumpster or a car door or a piece of debris and using them as a shield, while at the same time using your right tentacle to grab enemies and execute them or slam them into walls or tear them in half. Like, all of that is happening simultaneously, and you are controlling all of it. And when it's working, when you're in this rhythm of shooting and shielding and grabbing and executing all at once, it just feels spectacular. And the Darkness powers beyond the basic tentacle stuff are really great. You have Demon Arm, which lets you grab and throw basically anything in the environment. You have Creep, which sends out this little creature that can scout ahead and detonate. You have Black Hole, which is this devastating area attack. You have Swarm, which are these Darkness tendrils that crawl toward enemies. And you level up your Darkness abilities through this progression system using the dark essence you collect from executions, and building out your powers and finding the combinations that work for your style is just really engaging. Like, the upgrade system is well designed and gives you real meaningful choices about how you develop Jackie's abilities. And the light and darkness mechanic is just so well integrated into everything, because the darkness weakens in light, like the entity retreats when exposed to strong light sources, and so light becomes this tactical consideration throughout every encounter. Enemies know this and they use it against you, placing spotlights and using flashlights and using flares to try and suppress your powers, and you have to manage light, destroying light sources to plunge areas into darkness and restore your powers. And it creates this really interesting push and pull in combat, where the environment itself is a weapon on both sides. Like, shooting out a spotlight to unleash your full power is just consistently satisfying, and the game is really good at designing spaces where that light and darkness interplay creates interesting tactical decisions. The gunplay itself is also just really solid. Like, separate from all the supernatural stuff, the basic shooting in the Darkness 2 feels really great. And between missions, there's this hub area, this recreation of the Estacado family compound, and you can wander around it and talk to your guys, and it's just this really nice breathing space between the action. If you have never played the Darkness 2, and I know a lot of people haven't, like, it flew under the radar when it came out and it's kind of stayed there, definitely give it a chance. This is one of those games where I smile the second somebody brings it up, because like there is genuinely nothing else quite like it. Like in a world full of shooters that are trying to be serious and cinematic and gritty and realistic, Bulletstorm just showed up and went, nah, like absolutely not. We are going to be the loudest, most absurd, most gleefully over the top shooter you have ever touched, and we are going to make you feel like a complete genius, idiot genius for playing it. And like, that's not an insult. That is the highest possible compliment I can give this game, because Bulletstorm knows exactly what it is, and it commits to that identity so completely and so joyfully that you just cannot help but get completely swept up in it. So for people who don't know, Bulletstorm originally came out in 2011, developed by People Can Fly, the Polish studio that also made Painkiller, and published by Epic Games. And it kind of came and went at the time, which is just, it's a crime, honestly. Like, it came out in this really crowded shooter market, and it just didn't find the audience it deserved right away. And then in 2017, we got Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition, which is the remaster, the definitive version. Cleaned up visuals, all the DLC included, runs better, and it also added the Duke Nukem playthrough, which is this whole separate thing where you can play through the entire campaign with Duke Nukem replacing Grayson Hunt as the protagonist, with John St. John doing the voice. And like, that's insane. That is an insane thing to include, and it rules completely. But the core of what makes this thing special, the actual soul of Bulletstorm, that's all intact, and it's all just as good as it ever was. Better actually, because now more people have access to it and the performance is cleaner. And okay, so let me just explain the core concept, because I think once you understand what this game is actually doing mechanically, it immediately clicks why it's so special. The whole game is built around something called the skill shot system, and the basic idea is that you don't just get points for killing enemies, you get points for killing enemies creatively. Like, the more inventive, the more ridiculous, the more specific the way you kill somebody, the more points you rack up, and those points are your currency for buying ammo and upgrades. So the game is literally incentivizing you to not take the easy shot. Like, the game is actively punishing boring play and rewarding you for being a complete lunatic. And that single design decision changes everything about how you engage with every single encounter, because you're never just moving through a space trying to survive. You're always thinking, okay, what's the most insane way I can kill these 5 guys right now, and how do I chain them together for maximum points? And the tools you're given to pull this stuff off are just fantastic. So you've got your guns, obviously, but the two big mechanical pillars are the leash and the kick. The leash is this energy whip thing attached to Grayson's arm that lets you grab enemies from a distance and yank them toward you, and you can charge it up to create this area effect blast that sends multiple enemies flying into the air. And the kick is exactly what it sounds like, a massive boot that sends enemies and objects flying away from you with this tremendous force. And between those two things, the leash and the kick, you have this whole vocabulary of movement and manipulation for bodies and environments that just opens up into this endlessly creative sandbox. Like, you yank a guy toward you with the leash, kick him up into the air, then shoot him with a specific weapon for a specific skill shot, or you kick a guy off a ledge for the drop kick, or you yank a guy into a cactus for the pricked skill shot, or you kick a guy into an electrical fence, or you shoot a guy in the legs to slow him down and then kick him into a group of his friends. Like, the combinations just keep coming, and the game keeps naming and rewarding each one, and you're constantly discovering new ways to be horrible to these enemies, and it is just endlessly satisfying. Now, the guns. Let's talk about the guns, because the arsenal in Bulletstorm is just, it's so good. Like, each weapon has a standard fire and a charged alternate fire, and they all have completely different personalities, and they all enable different skill shots. The Peacemaker carbine is your basic assault rifle, but even that has this satisfying weight to it. The flail gun shoots these 2 grenades connected by a wire that you can wrap around enemies and detonate, which is just beautiful. The environments in Bulletstorm are also way more varied than people maybe remember. Like, yeah, it's mostly this ruined resort planet, but within that setting, you get these really different areas. And the pacing of the campaign is really well done too. Like, it keeps introducing new enemies, new skill shot opportunities, new weapons at just the right rate, so you never feel like you've seen everything.